Hey friends, welcome back to The Proof. I'm your host, Simon Hill, and today I'm going to reveal 3 things that can transform your gut from a diseased wasteland into a thriving rainforest of health, and the 3 common mistakes that may be silently destroying your gut right now. This is not just about digestion, this is about the trillions of microbes inside you that regulate your immune system, influence your brain and how you think, shape your metabolism, and plenty more. Today, we'll explore the science of the microbiome in depth, breaking down what helps it thrive and what harms it. In this expanded episode, we'll go beyond the basics. I'll explain how short-chain fatty acids work, how your gut and brain communicate, and how your microbiome supports your immune function. We'll also dive into a practical recovery plan for those who have taken antibiotics, discussing the roles of prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. We'll clear up some myths too, like the idea of gut resets and the notion that probiotics are always the answer. Plus, we'll look at how ingredients like emulsifiers may be messing with our microbes. Before we get into things, if you are enjoying The Proof, please hit subscribe and like below. Your support is greatly appreciated. Okay, let's dive into the fascinating world of your gut. And if you're wondering what has happened to my voice, I lost it on the weekend, but it's slowly coming back, so bear with me. Did you know you're only half human? It's true, your body contains roughly the same number of microbial cells as it does human cells. But these microbes, specifically bacteria, viruses, fungi, and archaea, are not invaders. They are your most powerful health allies. Which brings us to the first definition today, the microbiome. Your gut microbiome is not just a collection of bacteria. It's a dynamic ecosystem, a rainforest of these microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and archaea. Primarily residing in your large intestine or colon, this community is incredibly diverse, with each microbe playing a very specific role in your health. So let's explore exactly how they do that, starting with your immune system. Firstly, microbes educate our immune system more than teachers. Think of them as scholars, training your immune system to distinguish between harmful pathogens and friendly microbes, helping to balance immune responses and reducing autoimmunity. Second, they protect your gut barrier. Microbes ferment or consume indigestible parts of our food that escape digestion in our small intestine and pass into our large intestine, producing specific fats known as short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Why is this important? Because these short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, are the peacekeepers of your gut lining. Butyrate, for instance, is the main fuel for the cells lining your colon. It helps strengthen the gut barrier, preventing what we call leaky gut, which is more accurately referred to as increased intestinal permeability. A strong gut barrier helps keep inflammation down by preventing harmful substances from entering circulation. Third, these microbes influence your brain and emotions. The gut-brain axis allows communication between your gut and brain, impacting mood, stress, and cognition. You've probably heard before that 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. And while this serotonin does not cross the blood-brain barrier, it can affect nerves that send signals directly to the brain. Microbes also influence your brain through the vagus nerve and by producing neurotransmitter precursors like tryptophan, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and affect mood, sleep, pain perception, etc. Microbes even influence your appetite and satiety, something we spoke about in a previous episode together. And beyond that, they're involved in regulating cholesterol, insulin sensitivity, and inflammation throughout the body. An imbalanced microbiome, what we call dysbiosis, is linked to conditions like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory bowel disease, allergies, and even neurodegenerative diseases. The exciting part? Unlike our genes, which are fixed, our microbiome is dynamic and highly responsive. What you eat, how you sleep, your stress levels, all of these influence the composition and function of our microbiome on the daily. In a matter of days, you can literally shift your microbiome from an ecosystem that is promoting disease to one that's promoting good health. Which brings us to the most important part of this episode, the 3 best things you can do for your gut microbiome. The first thing you can do for your gut microbiome is to adopt a diet with greater plant diversity. Your gut microbes love plants. Let me say that again. Your gut microbes love plants. Specifically, they feed on microbiota accessible carbohydrates, which is a fancy name for certain fibers and resistant starches found in legumes, whole grains, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. One of the best ways to support your gut is by increasing the diversity of plant foods that you eat. The American Gut Project, one of the largest citizen science studies on the microbiome, found that people who eat more than 30 different plant foods per week have significantly more diverse microbiomes than those who eat 10 or fewer. In fact, the number of plants someone ate was a better predictor of their microbiome composition than the type of diet they consumed: vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, omnivores, etc. The key take-home point here is that diverse inputs lead to diverse microbes, and diverse microbes are more resilient, better at producing health-promoting compounds, and more protective overall. This finding of more plant diversity being associated with greater microbiome diversity is not an isolated one. Just a few months ago, a new study was published that analyzed poop samples from over 21,000 subjects. Again, the more plants people were eating, the more diverse their microbiome was, and the greater the number of specific microbes that are thought to be cardiometabolic protective. That is, protective against cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, etc. On the flip side, those eating more red meat had less microbiome diversity and a greater abundance of specific bacteria that are considered to be inflammatory, including Bilophila wadsworthia, which has been implicated in a number of inflammatory diseases. While we're on the topic of microbiome diversity, quick sidebar for my friends out there that are in the dating world. Want to know what may make you more attractive? Yes, the diversity of your microbiome. And while I haven't seen this borne out in human data, there is data from mice showing that male mice are more attracted to female mice who have greater microbiome diversity. Perhaps because a diverse microbiome means better immunity for offspring. Coming back to humans, it's important to increase fiber and plant foods gradually. In a recent Stanford study led by Justin and Erica Sonnenberg, names you might recognize from our past podcast episode, participants who quickly ramped up fiber from 20 to 40 grams per day showed increased inflammation, especially if their starting microbiome diversity was low. That doesn't mean that fiber is bad. It means that microbes need more time to adjust. So here's the key: scale up slowly over weeks or even months, especially if your baseline diet right now is very low in fiber and plant diversity. For example, add a handful of lentils to your salad a few times a week. There's no need to go from 0 to chickpea champion overnight. If you do, chances are you'll end up gassy and perhaps even revert back to your previous low fiber but more comfortable diet. A favorite hack of mine to increase plant diversity is to buy frozen mixed berries or frozen mixed vegetables. Not only are these flash frozen soon after harvest, so very nutrient dense, but they provide a convenient way to boost plant diversity with less food wastage. Another quick hack is eating leftover pasta, potatoes, and rice. By cooking and then cooling these foods, digestible carbohydrates are converted to resistant starches. This means lower post-meal glucose levels and more food, yes, more food for your microbes. Bonus tip here, many polyphenols, which are antioxidant-rich plant compounds, are also prebiotics. And a quote from a recent paper in Nature: plants contain polyphenols, the products of plant secondary metabolism, known to promote beneficial bacteria that prevent inflammation, enhance the gut barrier, and hinder potential pathogens. End quote. Here's the big revelation. Just like prebiotic fiber and resistant starch, the majority of polyphenols we consume escape digestion in our small intestine and pass through to our large intestine, where they act as food for our microbes. You will find polyphenols in all plants, but some that are particularly rich in polyphenols include berries, apples, olives, extra virgin olive oil, cocoa and dark chocolate, coffee, tea, and colorful vegetables like broccoli and carrots. These are not just foods, they are gut transformation tools. One of the most polyphenol-rich berries out there is lingonberries, a key ingredient in 38 Terra's Daily Microbiome Nutrition, or DMN, which is, in my opinion, the most science-based complete prebiotic supplement out there that includes prebiotic fiber, resistant starch, and polyphenols. Full disclosure, this is a product that I formulated along with gastroenterologist and friend of the pod, Dr. Will Bolsowitz, based on the best available evidence. And I only mention it here because it genuinely reflects what the science says is most beneficial. There are 2 other prebiotic supplements that I want to quickly highlight, specifically for my friends that are over 60 years old and are interested in improving their cognition. In 2024, a group of researchers from the prestigious King's College London published a randomized controlled trial called the Promote trial in Nature, arguably the top peer-reviewed journal out there. In this trial, they took 36 twin pairs, so 72 people in total, and randomized them to protein plus resistance training plus a prebiotic supplement or protein plus resistance training plus placebo. The only difference, the prebiotic supplement. After just 12 weeks, the results were very interesting. Those taking the prebiotic had significantly greater abundance of microbes associated with superior cognition, specifically actinobacteria, which includes bifidobacterium. And there's more. These subjects also performed significantly better on a cognitive memory test that is used as an early identifier of Alzheimer's dementia. The daily prebiotic supplement used in this study contained 3.375 grams of inulin and 3.488 grams of fructooligosaccharides. It is worth noting that unlike 38 Terra's DMN, these 2 prebiotics are not low FODMAP. So if you suffer from bloating or food sensitivities, you might not tolerate them that well. But if you do tolerate inulin and fructooligosaccharides, then these could be a good addition to your supplement stack to feed specific microbes that affect brain function. The second thing you can do to promote good gut health is eat fermented foods daily. Fermented foods are rich in live microbes and have been eaten by traditional cultures for centuries. We're talking about sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, tempeh, kefir, yogurt with live cultures, and even fermented sourdough. In the same Stanford study that I mentioned earlier, participants who consumed fermented foods daily for 10 weeks saw a significant increase in microbial diversity and a reduction in several markers of inflammation, including interleukin-6. That's pretty powerful. In Sardinia, fermented sourdough bread is a dietary staple, perhaps one of the reasons this is considered a blue zone and home to some of the longest living people in the world. When making sourdough, the fermentation process pre-digests some of the gluten and makes nutrients more bioavailable, while also introducing beneficial microbes. If you've ever wondered why grandma's sauerkraut just hits different, well, now you know the secret science behind it. And yes, of course, you can make your own fermented foods at home. You don't have to buy the expensive ones from the store. Sauerkraut takes just cabbage, salt, a jar, and some time, and it's deeply satisfying to know that you've taken time to personally produce a food for your microbes. And they will thank you later with good health. This brings us to gut health myth number 1. All fermented foods are created equal. Here's the deal. Not all fermented foods actually contain live microbes. Some are heat treated or pasteurized after fermentation, which kills the bacteria. Others, like vinegar pickled foods, are not fermented at all. To get the benefits, look for raw, unpasteurized products that say contains live and active cultures on the label. And know that the microbe content will vary widely across different foods, so variety of fermented foods is your friend. The Stanford study had subjects consuming 6 servings of fermented foods per day. That's quite a lot. I recommend starting with 1 serving per day and then increasing as tolerated. According to the study, 1 serving was as follows: 6 ounces or 180 mils of kombucha, yogurt, kefir, or kvass, 1/4 cup of kimchi, sauerkraut, or other fermented veggies, or 2 ounces or 60 mils of a vegetable brine drink. On the topic of kombucha, I've got to tell you about a new fascinating study that I just came across, one that fed kombucha-derived bacteria to worms. Yes, I know. Our first official worm study here on The Proof. And no, I'm not saying that you are a worm, unless of course you're pulling out the worm on the dance floor, in which case, mad respect. But nonetheless, this was an interesting study. This study, published last year by researchers at UNC, explored how probiotics found in kombucha affect physiology. And they did this using a worm model. Now, here's what's fascinating about this study. The live microbes in kombucha appeared to activate genes in these worms that are typically switched on during fasting. In other words, these bacteria from kombucha triggered a kind of metabolic state that promoted increased fat metabolism. Now, does that mean weight loss? Does that mean less fat inside organs, the kind that's metabolically harmful? And more importantly, does this worm research translate to humans? Well, we don't know yet, but I'll be keeping an eye on this space. I wouldn't be surprised if researchers now start isolating these specific strains of bacteria and testing their effects in human studies over the next few years. In the meantime, if you enjoy kombucha, go for it. Just a heads up, it is quite acidic, so follow it with a glass of plain water to help protect your teeth, something I spoke about in a recent episode with Drew Harrisberg. I am absolutely excited to share an exclusive offer with the Proof community. This is a limited time offer just for my audience, and no doctor referral is needed. Function Health is a comprehensive at-home blood testing service that gives you access to over 100 biomarkers, covering everything from heart, liver, kidney, and metabolic health to hormone levels, inflammation, and nutrient status. That, my friends, is 5 times more testing than the average physical. I chose Function for my own blood work and to be a sponsor of this show because they are the best in the world when it comes to helping you understand and own your health. It's true, the depth and quality of their testing is unrivaled. And as regular listeners of this show will know, you cannot optimize what you don't measure. Don't guess, test. Use Function to know exactly where your health is today, and then intervene with evidence-based medicine and lifestyle changes to feel your best and reduce your risk of chronic disease. With Function, you get access to very important markers like Lp(a), a genetically driven cardiovascular risk factor, ApoB, the most predictive marker of atherosclerosis, and LH and FSH, reproductive hormones typically missing from standard lab panels. It's not uncommon for these biomarkers and others to be elevated. For example, over 50% of Function members have an ApoB level, and over 20% have an Lp(a) level that is above the optimal range. You can even add on harder to access tests like cystatin C, a very sensitive marker of kidney function, as well as selenium and iodine, nutrients that are essential for thyroid and overall health, yet rarely tested. So what are you waiting for? Run over to functionhealth.com/Simon Hill today and be one of 1,000 listeners to score a $100 credit. That's functionhealth.com/Simon Hill. The third thing you can do to support your gut microbiome is to lead a healthy lifestyle beyond the food on your plate. Would you believe that your microbiome is listening to everything you do, not just what you eat? This is the game-changing truth that most people completely miss. While food certainly plays a massive role in shaping your microbiome, your other lifestyle choices are secretly communicating with your gut 24/7. Let me break down the 3 biggest microbiome transformers that have nothing to do with your dinner plate. First up, exercise. This is not just about muscles and heart health. Regular movement has been shown to increase microbial diversity and support growth of butyrate-producing bacteria in your gut. One of, if not the primary way that regular exercise leads to lower inflammation throughout the body, decreasing risk of many chronic conditions. Ideally, you're doing a mix of cardiovascular exercise, hiking, bike riding, jogging, walking, rowing, etc., and resistance training each week. And here's the microbiome hack that's often overlooked. You get bonus gut benefits if you exercise outdoors in the natural elements, exposing yourself to environmental microbes. Next up, optimizing sleep. Poor sleep can alter the microbiome in just a few days, like diet, not months or years. Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night and treat your sleep hygiene as seriously as you would treat your nutrition or dental hygiene. Try to avoid using screens in the few hours before bed, dim your lights, or even better, switch to red lights before bed. In the morning, get natural light exposure soon after waking to help sync your body's circadian rhythms with the environment. This will also help you wind down and fall asleep later that evening. Finally, we have to find ways to manage stress. Chronic stress does not just affect our mind. It increases gut permeability, shifts microbalance, and drives inflammation. It's like creating tiny gateways in your gut lining. Mindfulness, breath work, journaling, being in service of others, spending more time with loved ones, and getting outside in nature are all strategies that are proven to help buffer stress and through that protect your microbiome. Speaking of the gut lining, that brings me to gut health myth number 2. You need to detox your gut. Let's clear this up. Despite what some wellness influencers may claim online, your gut does not need a detox. You already have a highly effective detoxification system. Your liver, kidneys, lungs, skin, and yes, your gut lining itself. Rather than wasting money on expensive and often extreme cleansers or juice fasts, the most effective way to support your gut is with consistent real food habits. More fiber, less ultra-processed food, regular movement, and good sleep. That's it. Your body is incredibly smart. If you give it the tools that it needs, it will take care of the rest. It doesn't need a detox tea with gold flakes and unicorn root. Treat it well with everything that we've discussed so far, and it'll take care of itself better than any $79.99 cleanse ever could. All right, we've covered the best things you can do for your microbiome. Now let's flip the script. What's harming your gut? In this part of the episode, I'm going to walk you through the 3 worst things you can do for your gut, my personal antibiotic recovery protocol, debunk a few more common myths about probiotics, and give you a simple way to track your gut health without fancy testing. The first thing that you want to avoid is overusing antibiotics and living an ultra clean or overly sanitary lifestyle. Now, let me be clear here, antibiotics are life-saving, but they're also microbial nukes, wiping out the good microbes with the bad. Even a single course can significantly reduce microbe diversity, and some species may never recover fully without support. And then there's our obsession with cleanliness, which only became more apparent over the last 5 years. Over-sanitized environments and lack of natural microbe exposure like dirt, pets, and plants can impair immune training and reduce microbiome richness. We know that kids growing up with pets and outdoor exposure tend to have more resilient guts and fewer allergies. The take-home message here being that yes, antibiotics will sometimes be needed, and yes, we want to wash our hands after going to the toilet, but taking antibiotics when they're not indicated, like when you have a virus, and over-sanitizing is killing microbes that support human health. Not to mention the copious amounts of antibiotics that we feed to the animals we eat, cows, chicken, pigs, etc., which along with our own overuse is causing antibiotic resistance, harmful bacteria literally evolving to evade our medicine. Yes, this is so scary that the World Health Organization classifies this as one of the top global public health and development threats. In my last Ask Me Anything episode, a few of you asked what you can do if you need to take antibiotics. As I mentioned, sometimes they're absolutely essential and even life-saving. I use them myself, though only when they're really truly warranted. I'm not very flippant about it. I don't reach for antibiotics the moment that I get a cough or a cold. In the case of a bacterial infection, I make a call based on a diagnosis, the severity of my symptoms, and the recommended evidence-based way to treat whatever bug I've picked up. If I do have to take antibiotics, I follow a pretty strict protocol to protect and rebuild my microbiome before, during, and after antibiotics. The first part of the protocol begins before illness, gut prehab, so to speak. Prehab meaning pre-rehabilitation. This is a term that I used when I worked as a sports physiotherapist early in my career. We would do prehab with athletes to get them as strong as possible before going into surgery. Prehab for the gut means doing the following before you get ill and have to take antibiotics in the first place, i.e. what you do every day when you're healthy. Number 1, eat a wide variety of plants, 30 plus per week. Number 2, include fermented foods daily. And number 3, consider a daily prebiotic supplement to feed the beneficial bacteria. Then during and after antibiotics, this is when we get into gut rehab. Double down on your plant diversity, go to the markets, make sure your plates are super colorful, plenty of herbs and spices. Increase your consumption of fermented foods, make them an absolute non-negotiable part of every day. And take a clinically validated prebiotic supplement like 38 Terra's Daily Microbiome Nutrition, which as I mentioned contains prebiotic fiber, resistant starch, and polyphenols shown to improve regularity, support beneficial microbes, and increase short-chain fatty acid production. While we're here on the topic of antibiotics, that brings us to gut health myth number 3. And this is that probiotics are always beneficial after antibiotics. This might be the most surprising thing that I'll say today. This simply is not true. Research has shown that taking a standard probiotic immediately after antibiotics can sometimes delay the microbiome's return to its natural state. Instead of reaching for a generic supplement, focus on feeding your gut with prebiotics and whole foods. If you do want to take a probiotic, work with a practitioner who can help you select strains based on your needs. Okay, so that is antibiotics and over-sanitization. The second thing that you really want to avoid if you're wanting to achieve good gut health is over-consuming calories from ultra-processed foods. Most ultra-processed foods promote microbial ghost towns. Now, it's not just that these foods lack beneficial bacteria, they also lack the food that your gut microbes rely on. Low in fiber, stripped of polyphenols, and often full of additives like emulsifiers, these foods deprive your microbiome of what it needs to flourish. Over time, that means fewer good gut bugs, more bad actors, and a gut ecosystem that is quite simply out of balance. Animal studies suggest that emulsifiers like polysorbate 80 and carboxymethylcellulose, new ingredients in our food that our microbes have not yet evolved and adapted to process, may disrupt the gut lining, alter microbe balance, and increase inflammation. Although for full transparency and balance, it's not uncommon for these studies to use doses of emulsifiers that are far higher than what humans are exposed to on a milligram per kilogram of body weight basis. While we do wait for in vivo human research, I think it is sensible to limit our consumption of these ingredients where possible. And perhaps more importantly, ultra-processed foods crowd out fiber-rich whole foods, reducing your exposure to prebiotic fiber, resistant starch, and polyphenol, the fuel that your microbes need to survive. If it comes in a crinkly packet and it lasts forever on the shelf, odds are that your microbes won't love it, or at best, they would prefer something else. The third thing to avoid is adopting a diet that is high in saturated fat and low in fiber. Diets high in saturated fat and low in fiber promote the growth of bile-tolerant bacteria like Bilophila wadsworthia, which we mentioned earlier, that are associated with inflammation. We see this often in Western dietary habits, lots of animal fats, which tend to be saturated, refined carbs, and not enough fiber-rich plants. An absolute recipe for disaster when it comes to your gut. In contrast, traditional high-fiber diets tend to promote butyrate producers and a healthier gut environment overall. It's the classic Western diet trap. Lots of steak and soda, not enough beans and greens. Now, before we move on, there's another gut health myth. This is gut health myth number 4 related to probiotics that I'd like to clear up. And that is that probiotics are better than prebiotics. You might have heard that. Here's the thing. While certain probiotics can be useful for specific conditions, it's hard to know what particular strain you need for your unique microbiome. What we do know is that feeding your microbiome with prebiotics found in plant foods can help your own unique microbiome become more diverse, resilient, and protective. Prebiotics, again, are the fuel. Probiotics are passengers. Feed the right ones and they will do the work for you. While we're on these myths, gut health myth number 5, you can reset your gut in a week. This might be the most dangerous and outrageous myth in the wellness space. There really is no such thing as a 7-day gut reset. That is made up. That is marketing language. Real change comes from showing up for your gut day after day after day, with the things that we've spoken about in this episode. You cannot overuse or abuse antibiotics for years, eat a fiber-deficient diet your entire adult life, and then expect to hack your way to a healthy gut in 7 days with some magic supplement or protocol. That's like doing one yoga class and expecting enlightenment. The truth is, you'll be much better at yoga and far more enlightened if you practice consistently, but not necessarily perfectly over years and decades. And the same exact thing applies to your gut. Small, consistent actions accumulate into profound changes over time. Okay, now that we cleared that up, one of the most common questions I get is, how do I know if my gut health is improving? This is a great question. And while the science of microbiome tracking is still evolving, here are a few practical things that you can monitor. Short-term signs you'll notice in days to weeks include more regular, comfortable bowel movements, significantly less bloating and digestive discomfort, fewer intense sugar and carb cravings, more stable energy levels throughout the day, and balanced mood. Medium-term signs that you'll notice in weeks to months include visibly improved skin health and clarity, noticeably fewer colds, infections, and sick days, better quality sleep and faster recovery from exercise, lower cholesterol numbers on your blood work, reduced waist circumference, where many of us hold inflammatory and disease-provoking fat, lower HbA1c, triglycerides, and fasting blood glucose. You can also try tracking how many different plant foods you eat each week, a gut journal, so to speak. Can you build to 30 unique plants per week? If so, this is a great indicator that your gut is thriving. You don't need expensive, unvalidated microbiome tests right now. Maybe one day they will be validated and informative, but for now, focus on the things that I've just mentioned. And with that, that brings us to the end of today's episode. To summarize, the best things that you can do for your gut are: eat a wide, colorful variety of plant foods, aiming to consume 30 or more unique plant foods per week. Include fermented foods daily. Even a small serving will make a difference. Support your gut beyond food with healthy lifestyle habits, which means moving your body regularly, prioritizing quality sleep, and actively managing your stress. And the worst, overusing antibiotics, especially without prehab or a recovery plan, relying on ultra-processed, low-fiber foods, and eating a high-saturated fat, low-fiber diet. Remember, your gut microbiome is like a garden. Water it with plants, fertilize it with prebiotics, and protect it from pests like ultra-processed foods and stress. With the right inputs, which is a decision that we all get to make every single time we eat, it flourishes. With the wrong inputs, it becomes depleted and out of balance. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section on YouTube or Spotify. What's one thing that you're doing for your gut that you swear by? Or what's one habit that you're now committing to after this episode? Let me know. And of course, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone in your life who you think could benefit from it, especially that friend or family member who's always on antibiotics, constantly feeling tired or run down, or bouncing between periods of neglecting their health and then doing extreme and often expensive so-called gut cleanses. And if you are enjoying the proof, please hit subscribe on YouTube or follow on Apple or Spotify. And my promise to you is to continue bringing you evidence-based content like this. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you next week right here. Don't stand me up. Oh, and one last thing. Why did the sourdough starter get invited to all the parties? Because it really knew how to rise to the occasion. Yes, I went there. All right, get out of here.